So, Rudy, I know we're a little late to this. There's been a lot of developments that's happened, not only in the NFL, but also with these Dallas Cowboys. And the biggest news has been, well, McCarthy leaving and trying to fill that void. Certain circumstances, or at least some news is coming to light, which is it looks like Jerry and McCarthy were both at the altar. McCarthy read his vows and then listened to Jerry read his vows and said, "You want me to do what? Nah, forget it. I'm out of here." And he also pointed to maybe like the church and all the decorations, said, "Look what I did for you. 3 playoff runs in 5 seasons, and we had a shot in all the seasons. And you still want me to, like cater to you after you gutted my coaching staff and whatnot? Nah, see ya. I got a good resume now, and I'm heading out of here. I don't, I'm not coming out of the barn like I was 5 years ago. So see ya." I think that's a pretty accurate reflection, especially with how this team has been scrambling to try to fill his void. I don't think that's a lie, or people are just pushing that to make fun of Jerry Jones. I think it's pretty obvious that's the way it was going. So before we get into, I guess, the coaching candidates and maybe even admonishing the front office, let's review McCarthy's time here. As I mentioned, 5 seasons here, 3 playoff visits, missed 2 of them. Both of them had catastrophic quarterback injuries, but I feel like it was late into November in the first season that we were still looking for a playoff spot and winning the division because it was so bad. And then, of course, this last year, going all the way until Cincinnati late in the winter to get a playoff spot. I would say his biggest weakness was his offense, kind of all the headaches that caused not only with his players, but just being too slow to get ramped up. That was supposed to be his calling card, and it never looked like it was really fit well with Dak Prescott. And it came up short probably 2 out of the 3 playoff visits. But the good, man, I feel like he was the best head coach we've had since Bill Parcells. Constantly getting us in the playoffs, constantly basically winning the division. Great relationship with players, great communicator with players, getting everybody to buy in, never really lost the room. And ultimately, I think he was a success here, and I'm sad to see him go, despite some of the things I've said to start this season, how he shouldn't have been here. I ultimately think it's a very good, successful tenure with him here, especially after the 10 years of Garrett. But I'm curious, am I being way too lenient, Rudy, or do you disagree? Or
No, I think anyone who has like contempt for McCarthy it's totally based on one game against Green Bay. That's
yes.
not. I mean, his tenure was filled with success for us. Success for us. I think you're right. Obviously, to me, he's better than Garrett, and I think he's better than Wade as well. So yeah, I think since Parcells, he's easily been the best head coach we've had. That being, well, I don't want to tear him down right this second. Obviously, we know that he didn't go deep enough into the playoffs to not only keep his job and get us where we haven't been since the day I was born. We know that wasn't good enough. He knows that wasn't good enough, but you did mention the 3 winning seasons, and then the other 2 you didn't have your quarterback. That being said, I do think when he appointed like he wanted Mike Nolan. That was a disaster. So was Dan Quinn his idea, or was that the Joneses? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you at the top of my
Okay.
head.
Okay, so I probably should have looked that up beforehand. But I thought that was. I don't know if he did Dan Quinn. The one I do know he did, I didn't like. I know he had multiple OCs that he didn't get along with, and there were disputes over play calling, and Kellen leaves, and then Schottenheimer doesn't call his play at all or anything. And I bet you we're going to talk Schottenheimer later, but I bet you that low-key worked in his favor. I just think that McCarthy did have a few good years. I don't think it was good enough, but to say that he's been the best head coach since Bill Parcells, I think that's a given. I think anyone who doesn't agree with that is kind of just hating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of weird things that across the NFL, no, he was unsuccessful. But here in Dallas, I feel like he was successful. And there's always you always have to have a cowboy asterisk with it. I know we avoided it all season talking about the front office, but when it guards McCarthy, I think you have to consider that. Considering we had 10 years with Garrett, and he never made back-to-back playoff visits. His best time was, I think, 2014 to 2016, where he went to the playoffs 2 out of 3 times. And that dude was here 10 years. And you could say, yeah, well, they made it to the division round, which is as far as McCarthy got, which is fair because, like you mentioned, when we brought McCarthy in here, he was to get us to the championship and, hey, get us to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you gotta walk before you can run. And getting into the playoffs 3 years in a row, and he could have damn near did it all 5 if Dak was healthy. You're kind of at that point, you're just forcing the issue and, getting the playoffs again and again and again. You're not waiting 10 years. So I feel like,
being said, those playoff performances were not good. I mean, the win in Tampa was nice. That was cool. But I wouldn't say he had any. Well, he didn't have success in the playoffs, and ultimately that's why he's getting fired. So, like,
he wasn't fired, and
sorry,
he left.
Contract
they wanted him back. I think that's pretty.
They wanted him back at a certain price, and I mean, he knows his worth, and we're gonna lowball him anyway. So, like, it wasn't gonna come together unless he really decided to take less years and less money, which he shouldn't do. Honestly, the headache alone of being with the front office organization every day is probably such a nightmare. So I mean, that wasn't going to happen. But that being said, the front office limitations, he did overcome them pretty solidly, I will say. I think that we throughout the entire year, we don't like to blame it on one man. We don't like to blame it on Jerry, or you can go to Steven if you'd like. But Jesus Christ, man, it's a nightmare. So to overcome that a bit, he had a lot of talent too. McCarthy had a lot of talent as well on that offensive and defensive side of the ball as of 2 years ago,
Yeah.
So, I mean, the front office did give him that at least, and he did have a good defensive coordinator that the team was rolling. It truly was kind of the offense, and Green Bay beat the shit out of you, but it was your offense that stagnated. It wasn't the front office at that point. So that's honestly when I thought he should have been released.
Yeah, I do too. But as we're seeing things play out now, I mean, this is the thing we forget with 5 years from McCarthy is how bad it really is in the front office here. And like I mentioned, we kind of forgot about those 10 years with Jason Garrett, man. 10 years with that dude, and he did not. I don't think he was anywhere close to being successful as McCarthy. Real quickly, let's go into these playoff games. I think the San Fran game, that's his first time in the playoff with his team, the one at home. I can kind of say, okay, in a first time here, you get surprised. Damn, he put it on nervousness with the energy, or at least that's the thing I take away most from that game is that he didn't have his guys prepared. He they weren't confident whatever game plan he had, which kind of goes back to my main criticism of him on the offensive side of the ball.
Real quick, before we move on to the next one, that's supposed to be his strength, the offensive side of the ball. And because he's a veteran coach, the level of preparation that he's supposed to bring to his team is supposed to be much higher than what it has been. Also, another issue of his is adjusting in the middle of a game. And so I just wanted to, before we
let's give credit to the opponent, though, too. I mean, it's San Fran, and these last 5 years since McCarthy has been here, they have been pretty dominant in the NFC, as much as I hate to say it. Now, you could say, well, and like I said, I think that it's his first time with these guys, so I can, disappointing, yes, but still, okay, we're moving in the right direction, I would say.
We also have to remember, this is the same offensive, he's our offensive play caller at the same time where defenses are calling out the routes that we're going to run before the play is called, before we say hike. They know.
But this is the Kellen Moore offense too, by the way, which was put on him by the front office at that time.
Yeah, no doubt. And we'll get to Kellen in a little bit as well. But, that's Mike, you're the head coach, and if you can't overrule your 32-year-old offensive coordinator, I don't know what to tell you. You're the leader of men, right? Your players don't back down, and you can't stand up to Bucktooth? Jesus Christ. So, okay. No, I'm not giving you a pass on that.
All right. So next season, he go into Tampa and get a win on the road. Very impressive win. Retired Tom Brady. Nice job done. And then we have to go on the road again and play San Fran once again. And I feel like this was the season that they had an opportunity to do something, and ultimately he was let down by his quarterback with a terrible turnover right before the half in the red zone, and ultimately just got outplayed by the opposing quarterback and just looked very nervous. Dak was, and I guess we could also say maybe the offense was a little. I mean, there also was a major injury with Tony Pollard getting hurt early in that game too. Bad luck, you could chalk it up to, and maybe we can criticize the offense. But my main takeaway that I still remember at this point was Dak Prescott's poor performance. And so sometimes, I feel like regardless, even if you got a right game plan, I mean, we can look at how it is with these games that just happen. Sometimes your players just undo all of the work you put in as a head coach and schemes and play calling. And I really feel like, fair or unfair, I think it is fair to criticize Dak's performance in that game.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that every loss he's ever had is completely on him, man. I'm not gonna say that. That's just wrong. There's absolutely things that you can't control that are going to affect you during a game. But again, when it comes to adjusting to adversity, there are coaches who can do things, man. When it comes to their quarterback going down, or running backs, offensive linemen, like things and I specifically say offensive players because obviously he's not running the defense, even though he's the head coach. I'm not going to put fault on him for that because, again, he's doesn't do that side of the ball. But it's possible to overcome things.
Yeah, and I also do remember that the way that game ended was, and they got the ball like 2 minutes left or like 3 minutes left. This was like their go time drive. They went 3 and out, and they had a punt. It's really disheartening. It should be said that Dan Quinn was, I think his defense played very well. He gave up maybe one big play, which was the Kittle play, but ultimately had a really good game, which cannot be said in the Green Bay game. And this would be the 4th season with McCarthy, and I still feel like you're building something throughout those last 2 playoff games. So yes, they are disappointing, but you are building something, back-to-back playoff visits. There's good stuff happening. And I feel like within a coaching's tenure, it's disappointing, but it's progress, I guess is what I'm saying. And progress should never be not recognized. But in Green Bay, it was very disappointing, and it all,
Well, I was just going to say, look at the beginning of this year where your defense absolutely was hurt. Your offense really wasn't prior to Dak's injury. And we were on this podcast talking why is this offense starting slow again? It's the 4th or 5th year in a row. Well, it's every year of his tenure where he starts extremely slow to begin the season. And I think that also adds to frustration too, because do you learn from anything? I don't get it, man.
I mean, we could have this conversation another time because personally, I really don't think it matters if you start out slow. I just think you have to be 500 more or less throughout the entire first half of the season, and then you kickstart it going into the second half of the season. I mean, that way you're getting hot, you're fixing things, and you're exposing your problems early. And you're fixing that, and that way you go into the last part of the season, firing on all cylinders, and you've addressed all the problems you have. So I always thought the losses to New Orleans this year, Detroit, Baltimore were so overblown because they're so early in the season.
That being said, throughout his tenure, there were games where we put up 9 points, or 6. You have Dak. You have a solid O-line at that point too, because Zach Martin wasn't a bum yet. You still had at sometimes a healthy Tyron. Your offensive line was pretty dang good. You had Dak playing at almost an MVP level, and you have CeeDee Lamb, of course. And last year you had Ferguson breaking out, and you would still have games where you put up 9 points. Man, what is that? I know that the record at the end of the year was 12 and 12 and 5, which sure, that is a good record, man. That's a good record, but just having a good record is not especially with how bad the division was, that's not an indicator of being good. You had 4 free wins between Washington and the Giants. You're really an 8-win team to me. I don't know,
That's not
man.
true.
Come on. Washington and the Giants were free wins. It was 2 free wins on each of them each year, every year of his tenure.
I disagree, but
you disagree.
Yes.
Well, when did the Giants look good in the last decade?
Well, the Giants, maybe, okay, you might have something there, but I don't think you had 4 good wins. And Washington's always tough, bro, no matter who they were, and even before they had Jane Daniels, which, by the way, we could have gone 2-0 against them, and they were probably saying the same thing about us, that, Cowboys are an automatic win, and they couldn't even beat us when we didn't have Dak. But I guess what I'm saying is, we always had this Washington's going to be a tough team to play. It's always been like that ever since Tony Romo was here and Jason Garrett and whatnot. I think you might not being given credit to kind of the rivalry that is the NFC East.
I mean, what's Dak's record against the NFC East? You say it's tough, but Dak makes it look like the easiest thing on earth. In fact, I don't think there are teams he has any more success on than teams in the NFC East.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you because it's true, because he wins the division, which is important, and it shouldn't be discounted. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree, because I just don't think it matters that early in the season. And yeah, as long as you win, find ways to win.
Well, the thing too, though, is that later in the season, the things that he tends to do is that he finally starts listening to people and starts doing motion, which now can allow the team to identify what coverage the defense is in. Why do you stop doing that when the next season starts? Like that, I get what you're saying. Like, an early loss is just an early loss. It's not the end of the world. And that's fair. But if you don't ever learn year to year, because you say, okay, yeah, you're growing. Actually, I don't see that. It seems like every year you start over every single year. And so he's a good coach, man. I can't do this every year. And all right, that was a little dramatic, but you get my point in saying that I'm not going to pretend that you're growing every year when you're making the same mistake at the beginning of every single season. And it's not until you get pressure by way of 1,000 paper cuts of questions by the media asking, why do you never do motion? Why do you never do X, Y, Z? And then he finally does it. And guess what? It works. And so I think he's kind of hard-headed at times, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that. I thought he was pretty stubborn in review. But okay, so let's just finish this out. I think we both agreed that his time here was, how do we say this, positive. Obviously it wasn't successful. I guess let me just ask this question. Him leaving, him being gone now, is that ultimately a good place for the Cowboys?
On day one after, no. But I think you can actually build something into the future depending. Man, look, the coaching search has been malpractice by the front office, if we're being honest. And so I can't sit here and tell you that going into next season we will be better without Mike McCarthy. That's not something you can't say that, But I think you can confidently say that Mike McCarthy's ceiling with the Dallas Cowboys is not the ceiling of every single coach in the NFL. There are some that are higher and lower there. I think that your ceiling with Mike wasn't good enough to me, and so I think you have to take the risk in going into the dark, and it could be horrible for a few years. It was horrible in Washington for a while, and they're in the conference championship right now. It's horrible for the Lions for a decade, and they're where they are. We know they lost that game, but damn well that's a good roster that's built, and they obviously had good coordinators who are now looking at head coaching jobs. You have to plunge into darkness sometimes to try and redeem something. I think this team, under Mike, I think we hit our ceiling at this point.
Okay. I would just say this decision to let him go or, not sign him or whatever it was made a year too late, and was probably short-sighted of the way that he's leaving. I feel like leaves us in a worse place because I feel like I feel like you should bring him back just the way things ended. And I guess the overarching thing would be what I think is most important for this team right now, because this team is in a win now mode for at least the next 2 to 3 years until Dak's contract runs out. And you have your core pieces in CD Lamb, Micah Parsons. Those are their main three pieces. Even
They
though
might be
Micah's
the
not under
only three
contract.
players we have under contract right now.
Yeah. So I think it's most important. Let's just say move on. Look at the head coaching updates. To me, it's try to keep the steady hold of both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. I know there are problems, but ultimately, I don't think it makes sense to do a dramatic swing when you have a ticking time clock on your franchise quarterback and his contract. Defensively, I would love to see Mike Zimmer return, but I don't think his heart's in it anymore. I think he's one and done. And then as a head coach, I don't want a young guy brought in because I think he's going to want to do things his way. If this was a normal situation and not a front office who's going to put Jason Witten on your staff and make you, groom him to be your next head coach, I guess let's just say in a vacuum, I would like to see Pete Carroll be the head coach here. He's been there before. He has a steady hand. He's a winner. He knows what it takes to win in the NFL and, make a playoff run. And he's a run-heavy guys, and I think that's important to take off more run-heavy offense and take the pressure off Dak Prescott. He's injury-prone, and we've seen it with the last 5 years of McCarthy that he can't win it in the playoffs by himself. He needs help. So I feel like Pete Carroll as the head coach would have been the ultimate solution.
Who do you have? Pete Carroll's a defensive coach. Who would you have as OC with Pete?
So honestly, like I said, I wouldn't mind keeping it. I wanted to keep it pretty much the same. I wouldn't mind just elevating Schottenheimer. That guy kind of saw it through the last half of the season. We saw some good things with the team this last half of the season and getting Rico more touches and letting. I feel like the offense improved late in the season, so I would like to see Schottenheimer keep his place, keep the just the steady hand, not dramatic changes with this with Dak Prescott and the rest of this offense. And on defense, ideally, it would have been great to have Saleh here, and if you could somehow money whip him if he's not convinced to rebuild his image with the Dallas Cowboys, and another thing with hiring Pete Carroll is that Saleh is familiar with him, and they had success in Seattle with the Super Bowl win. So I feel like those are two good things. And if that doesn't work, hey, Jerry, you money whip DQ, might as well money whip Saleh because more or less Pete Carroll hopefully would just be here 2 to 3 years, just like Dak Prescott. And once that thing goes away, when Pete Carroll would probably, retire, he's 80 something, I think. You would have Saleh like, hey, Saleh, look, also, this is the pitch is you can come and take the head coaching role after Pete Carroll retires and we can restart fresh again. That was my ultimate plan. For the Cowboys. Rudy, do you want to give me yours, or should we acknowledge the list because this is totally a pipe dream given the list that the Cowboys
I'll go with my pipe dream real quick, and then we'll go to who
the list.
Probably going to end up here. Yeah. My pipe dream would be Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator of Tampa Bay. I like the way that they had kind of an even split between the run game and the pass game, which is something that we talked about. And yeah, man, like in past episodes, you asked like, what do you want to see going forward? Like the run leading the way, the pass leading the way, and basically I was just telling you like I want to split because I think Dak is good enough to lead a team if you could only throw the ball. I think our run game's good enough to where if all you could do was run, like we just saw with Cooper Rush being our quarterback, we still found success. And so just don't abandon either of them. I don't think I saw Tampa ever abandon their run just in favor of Mike Evans. Even when Godwin went down, he was still finding success in the passing game with one main receiver, which sometimes we can't do that with CD. I think he got the best out of Cade Otton, which you asked, is this the best we got out of Ferguson? I think Cohen can lead Ferguson to that success that he had last season. I think that my pipe dream would absolutely be to bring him in. They ran the ball very well with the rookie running back that even a former member of our show hated. He said that guy sucks.
Can I ask you, is this going to be a play calling head coach like McCarthy was? Is that what your hope is?
He would absolutely be calling the plays.
Is there an OC I think you would need one So who's your OC? Just a name. Like
At
McCarthy, I
that
guess, yeah, like the Cowboys had. So who would it be?
So I honestly, because I wanted Liam, I didn't think of an
Okay.
OC for him off the top of my head. But knowing the Cowboys, it's gonna be Schottenheimer because they're not gonna bring in someone new, especially if you're bringing in an offensive head coach. And knowing the Cowboys too, they like to dictate the coaching staff and completion, excluding what the head coach likes. And because he isn't like Pete Carroll or Bill Belichick and established, I think the Joneses will try to control a little bit more. So that could hurt the success that I think he could have if it were totally up to him. But that would be the guy I think that you'd find success in immediately.
Yeah.
And I think you can find success afterward as well, because you look what he did with Baker Mayfield. Let's say we don't renew Dak and we bring in some veteran quarterback like Sam Darnold or something. I think he would be able to still find success. So,
And who do you have as a DC?
DC? I want Salah. I want Salah so bad, man. Like the Jets defense got like way worse the second he walked out the door. It was crazy. It was insane.
Yeah.
That man knows scheme and defense, and he motivates his player, bro. Like, I think the corniest thing I hated on Hard Knocks how much he was like slobbing over Aaron Rodgers. I hated that. That was the whole team. That was their DC that they had, who was even worse than Salah. I hated that. I don't think that you'll have that here. I think there was something to do with, it's Aaron freaking Rodgers.
Yeah.
Dak is good, but he didn't have the legacy, and I think also all that starstruckness and trying to be positive and fun. It's your first year as a head coach. I think that's out the window. I think now it's business, and I would love him as the DC here.
Yeah, there are some like Spagnuolo, probably even Dan Quinn when he was here. They just wanted to go to defense. They didn't want to be the overseer of the entire team. Sometimes they just enjoy focusing on the thing they love. So it sounds like this plan with the Bucks coordinator. I forgot his name already.
Liam Cohen.
Cohen, is that like a 5-year plan? So you're looking after Dak's 3 years here? Because my plan was more of a 3-year plan. Pete Carroll seeing out the Dak years, and then you're transitioning over to one of the coordinators. Is yours more like a 5-year plan?
So I think he's good enough to be here that long. Like, I don't think it's a plan coming years. And so even if we said like,
well, I guess I'm asking like contract wise what you're looking at to give him, because I don't think what is going to happen.
Knowing the Cowboys, it will be. I think the Cowboys, no matter who they bring in, it will be tied to Dak's contract and length, and that is kind of the killer of it. I think that'd be also a reason he would just turn down the job straight up. But
real quickly, before we move on to the list, I like how we're giving that emphasis. How come you want Cohen over and you? Why not Ben Johnson, since that was the hot name?
Well, he's gone. He's not an option.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that's why. I didn't know when you wrote this down.
He did get way too cute in the playoff. I thought he was.
Say that. We'll talk about that. Okay. We'll talk about that later. In the next segment. Okay, so let's look at the list. The only name that really popped out to me besides Salah was Aaron Glenn. Now that was before, I think. I think was it yesterday that Aaron Glenn took
He's got the Jets job.
Yeah. So I did like the way he was able to probably build relationships and communicate with on the defensive side of the ball in Detroit, because the fact that he was able to get positive output out of backups and third stringer and guys after people were injured, and they were pretty good when they were all healthy, but the fact that he was still producing really caught my eye, and I think spoke volumes about who he is as a head coach, as a person. And probably the most important thing is communicating and building relationships with players and knowing what's best for them.
I remember I mentioned the Salah Hard Knocks. Detroit was on Hard Knocks, Dan Campbell's first year, and Aaron Glenn stood out. He was awesome, man. Like the way he communicated, and he's not like a super intense dude, at least like, from 90% of the clips, he's kind of just like a cool dude, but he's also like he seems more like a mentor than your friend as well. Like, he seems like someone who wants the best out of you. He wants you to see success, and he's going to tell you how to get there. He will absolutely. He's like a teacher and instructor, and I really like to see that out of him. I thought that was someone that they always say, "Oh, run through a brick wall, run through a brick wall." I mean, he's not Dan Campbell, but he'll show you the weak spot in that brick wall, and if you want to run through it, then go ahead. He'll find the weak point. And so, and you saw what he did. Oh God, well, who was the first playoff game they had?
The Rams last year.
Dang, what game am I thinking? I'm sorry. It was the last week of the season against the Vikings.
This season?
Anyway,
yeah, was against
this season. I don't know, the whole defense had gotten injured by like week 11, and they were allowing too many points. There's no doubt about it. But I thought that that Vikings game and the Lions, they were playing for the division, right, in a first-round bye. So, like, there was still something on the line. And he basically outlined the blueprint of how to beat Minnesota, and it's the exact blueprint that ended up beating them in the playoffs. That was Aaron Glenn with the depleted defense. So I do give him a lot of credit. I think he's a very, very smart coordinator, now head coach.
Yeah, so we agree Aaron Glenn was the name on the list that we wish they would have really looked at. Just rounding out the rest of the names, Deion Sanders. Pipe dream, that would be fun, but ultimately I think it's a bad idea and keep him in Colorado.
Honestly, man, it won't happen, especially with, his buyout. We're not going to pay that. But if it's Brian Schottenheimer or him, God,
Sanders.
Deion.
Kellen Moore made the list. Good God, no. I like Schottenheimer is now the hot name, which I think
I really feel like if the Eagles win, Jerry's gonna be salivating over Kellen, and he's gonna go straight to the media.
Well, they already interviewed, so I feel like I don't know. They did interview. Leslie Frazier was also a name on the list. He interviewed. I don't really want him as head coach.
That was it wasn't. He's not.
They wouldn't be that pessimistic, but I think you're right. Is there any other names I'm forgetting? I know Jason Witten has popped up, but in a way, I'm always just like, hey, fuck it, let's just do it, because I think we'll talk about this later. But I think it's basically over.
Real quick, with Witten, a lot of the thought process of Schottenheimer is that Witten would essentially be like an assistant head coach, learn under him for 2 years, 3 years. What was Dak's contract? 2 more years or 3 years? 3. So essentially, he'd learn under him for 3 years, and then take the reins, and you'll basically have a brand new team 3 years from now. So I don't know, man.
Let's put a pin in that. Let's come back to that later in the third segment.
Another option, I know Kingsbury has been talked a lot about.
No.
I'm not too interested in him. A lot of the success, I don't want to say a lot. I don't like when a black quarterback is reduced to the attribute that he's a running quarterback. Jaden Daniels can obviously pass the ball very well. He's thrown hella clutch passes this year alone, his rookie year, thrown some game winners. And so I don't want to just say that. But that being said, there are like 3rd and 1 plays, 4th and 1 plays where they'll absolutely use his legs. And I don't think you can do that with Dak. And so I think Kingsbury, especially just coming out of college with USC, likes a more mobile quarterback. You don't have that here. And so I don't think you'd find the same success.
Yeah, Coach Bro.
The read option would be useless.
Coach Bro to me is just Joe Brady, with better PR. I feel like both those guys need a top 2 quarterback. I mean, Coach Bro's best production was with Mahomes in Texas Tech. Kyler Murray, 1 season, and then he ultimately failed with him. And now 1 season with Jaden Daniels is all we really have to go on. And we saw how the second half of the season was going. But fortunately, he revitalized his career. I think that says more about Daniels than Coach Bro. Joe Brady, the same thing.
I'm not interested.
He needed Joe Burrow. He failed in Carolina. He needs Josh Allen now. So that rounds out the list. Yeah. And almost perfectly, we can get into the playoff games featuring Jaden Daniels, Lions, and everyone else next.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian, we had 4 big games played over this past weekend. The divisional round in the NFL. Why don't you go ahead and lead us through it?
Sure. So the Texans and Chiefs game was. I came away very impressed with the Texans. I did not think they were going to put up that much of a fight, and I was very impressed with C.J. Stroud. I know, once again, this former member on here, I guess, was just saying that he was going to regress back to the mean, but I thought he played. I thought he played better than Patrick Mahomes did. Now, I think if you just look at his stats, he was out. He definitely outplayed Patrick Mahomes. Unfortunately for him, Bobby Slowick and Dalton Schultz had other ideas and said, "Yeah, we'll just let you get sacked and damn near take out a leg."
Hey, you know what? To be fair though, on a lot of those like I swear to God, there were like 3 receivers open. And so, to Bobby Slowick's credit, there were a lot of open players. Like I think the average distance between a Chief and a Chief defender and a Texan receiver, it was astronomical. I could not believe against the Chiefs in Kansas City, who has been dominant all year. That team has been fantastic. There were so many open players. I honestly was stunned by that.
Well, so you say that, but one thing is the receivers. I mean, they were pretty much decimated. I think Nico Collins was like the really only starter because they had like a rookie out there with like his 5th start. The entire season was playing, and then I don't even know the other guy that was out there. So the Texans were definitely behind the 8 ball due to injuries. But Slowick, I feel like you are right. There were some drives that, like the 2 touchdown drives, he was damn near perfect. But I mean, the rest of the game, and I think this has been the Texans' gripe throughout the entire season, was that dude just kept getting away from running the ball with Mixon, and they were actually turning out good yardage with Mixon. I've kind of forgotten now, like how well and if Kansas City really honed it to stop the run. But I know just throughout the entire Texans season, they were just saying whenever that man gets away from running the ball, that's when bad things happen to this Texans offense. It slows down and just it just slows down and it's not as productive as it should be because you're getting away from running the ball, toting the rock with Mixon. And, why wouldn't you? That's the investment that you made in the offseason. But ultimately, I was very impressed. And the defensive side of the ball, too. I know Kansas City's not been this high-powered offense, but, man, I thought there were a couple times where I was like, oh, man, this game's over. Kansas City's going to go down and get their points or whatever. And the Texans just kind of held it all the way into like the 4th quarter. And I was just very impressed with their overall effort. I didn't think they had that in them. I didn't think D'Amico Ryan had a game plan like that in him. And yeah, I was just very impressed. But I thought the shine came off Bobby Slowick, just the way Stroud limped off the field and Schultz being in pass pro too many times for like 4 sacks out of the 8 sacks.
You know what, man? I'm going to be honest. I think D'Amico Ryan's had a stupendous game plan for that. Mahomes, so I got it right here. Mahomes threw for 177. 117 went to Kelsey. It was truly one man. Everyone else was shut down. Like, there was nothing else available. Kareem Hunt ran for 44 yards.
They didn't have that much
The offense
production.
of the Chiefs was completely shut down. I think the reason that the Texans were in that game, it has nothing to do with Slowick, Stroud, Mixon, or anyone on the offense. It was totally the defensive side of the ball. So it was really an impressive game plan by D'Amico and that defense.
Yeah, and just a quick thing to the Chiefs, bro, because this is like a quality you can't match in stats, but it's just like somehow, it is a boxer analogy where you're just letting the other guy tire himself out, make mistakes. You're letting the other team make mistakes, the inexperienced team make mistakes, miss kick. I think they blocked a kick also against the Houston Texans. So, and you're just letting them tire themselves out until like the 4th quarter, the final rounds, and then you go in for the kill shot and you get it done. And very impressive. Like I said, that won't show up in the stats, but if you watch the game state and you just see how it plays out, man, that's just like what champions do. And then like how you mentioned Kelsey and Mahomes relationship, bro, I just love that because this guy isn't
stop it, man.
Super fast or dynamic, but he just knows how to find the soft spot. And that relationship is just pretty special. Romo Witten-esque, and yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, to a level above even Romo Witten, man.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, and then that brings us to Saturday night, which was the kicker. And let me just say this straight up. I was shocked by the result of the Washington football team versus the Lions. I was pretty certain that the Lions were going to win. However, I feel like there is the only way Washington was going to make it a game and not get blown out. I don't even think I admitted that they could win it. But if there was any way for them to be successful or damn near successful or almost win, is if the Lions just absolutely imploded, turnovers, just made mistakes, gave up big plays and whatnot. And sure enough, they did.
Yeah.
The Washington football team, I don't know if you want to jump in here because I do have a couple thoughts about how they played, but I thought it was a little bit of a case of Detroit kind of peeing down their leg and just Washington with no like stress on their shoulders and just happy to be here almost. I feel like it's a little disrespectful, but I mean, maybe I just got to give a shout out to Jaden Daniels right now too and how he outplayed Goff. Rudy, let me know your thoughts before I really get into a couple of theories I had.
Yeah, I was just giving D'Amico some credit. Look at the defensive head coach in this one too, Dan Quinn. Man, we know that obviously when he was with the Cowboys, he's seen the Ben Johnson offense for the last 2 years. He knows what they like to do. I think and mind you, half their defense are also former Cowboys too, with like Dorrance and Dante Fowler. Yeah. They've seen this team before.
Okay.
There was
let me stop.
So
okay,
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
All right. So that's a good point. So did you watching that game? Did you see the interception right before halftime?
Yes.
By Washington.
It was kind of an overthrow, wasn't it?
It was an underthrow because the DB came underneath and got the interception on Jameson Williams on Goff when they were just driving in the end zone. Looked like they were about to make it a 7-point game, and he went for he went for a touchdown and he threw an interception. But that interception right there, did that not look like Deron Bland like being opportunistic and waiting and then coming and taking the interception? Okay, so that entire game, bro, I just felt like, man, this is exactly what the Cowboys were running with Dan Quinn these last 2 seasons when he was in Dallas, which was let's get a lead, and let's try to make it a track meet. Let's make the other team think that they have to throw the ball, which plays into Dan Quinn's, the Cowboys' hands at that time. Let me unleash my pass rushers, Micah Parsons, in this case, Lawrence Armstrong, those guys, and let them go hunt and beat their man. And then on the back ends, let my DBs, Diggs, Bland, in this case, Lattimore, and the other guys, I don't know the names because who cares? No disrespect. Let them hunt, Let me let them make their moves. And, if they make a mistake because they got pressure on them or, they're chasing the game, then that's when we'll get forced turnovers. I thought that was exactly the game plan that we had failed to run.
This was Green Bay at Dallas playoff game in complete reverse. Every first half interception that Dak threw, Goff said, I can one-up you. And you know what? Detroit does score 31 at the end of that game, and the Cowboys scored 30 in that game against Green Bay. But you could not stop the other team. Detroit was depleted. I mean, there's a reason you may have your best corner on McLaurin, but then De'Ami Brown drops 98 yards on you. They just offensively had too many weapons. And kind of at that time, well, people know De'Ami Brown, but no one fears De'Ami Brown, right? Yeah. But, I mean, he made plays. The dude ended up with 6 catches for 98, dog. You had McLaurin 4 for 87. Under that, Eckler got 41, whatever. You have guys whose perception going into this game were just guys, regular dudes, and they looked like absolute studs against an emaciated defense that couldn't stop them to save their life. So Goff did turn it over 3 times and screwed them from the beginning. This is exactly the Green Bay game. It's exactly the Green Bay game 1 year later, but Dan Quinn comes out on top of it.
Yeah, I was talking about Detroit's game plan. This is why one, was not impressed with Ben Johnson, and 2 is why I don't want a hotshot OC as my head coach because A, they get lost in the plot. And this dude was trying to go toe for toe for every big play Washington had. He wanted to answer that and basically be the hero of the game when he knows that his defense is A, gas, but B, has nobody on that side of the ball. Or actually, I don't think he knows this. I don't think this ever enters his mind because otherwise, if he did know that, he would not be trying to make the game a track meet. And I think that played exactly into Dan Quinn and the Washington football team's hands as Ben Johnson's dialing up all these trickeries, trick plays, airing it out, letting Goff air it out. Now, there's nothing to do with the pick 6 turnover. I think that's just Goff being a goof. That happens. But when it was getting closer, bro, just tote the rock right before half. And if they make it like a 1-score game, I think they have a chance. But I just feel like Ben Johnson just kind of lost the big picture of that game and was just so focused on scoring that he kind of failed his team. He failed the defensive side of the ball that needed a break and needed, this is how you beat Dan Quinn is you just on his defense, you just run on them and run on them and run on them, and that would give it a break. And I think Dan Quinn or Ben Johnson failed, and I also think Campbell deserves some blame for not, pulling the reins back on that. And then one of the biggest blunders too was the 12-man penalty that.
Oh, that was.
I know we have this
That
conversation. I'm a big fan
ridiculous.
of the walk around head coach that doesn't have anything, not play calling anything on either side of the ball. But the reason is, if I'm going to be a pro of that, then I have to call it out where you fail, which is, bro, you got 12 men on the field. Call a damn timeout. This is fourth and goal or 4th and 3 at the goal line, bro. This is huge. How do you not call timeout at that point?
That's horrendous.
Big boo-boo.
Real quick, I do want to point out a slight difference because you mentioned just young coaches in general through the flaws of Ben Johnson not realizing that he should still be using his run game. I don't think that's the case when it comes to McVay loves his run game, actually. I think that there's a perception that young coaches are always pass heavy. If Aaron Jones wasn't brought into Minnesota, that offense looks completely different. Kevin O'Connell recognized the importance of a run game. I think you can also look at Green Bay bringing in Josh Jacobs. Those teams without the run games they had all year, they're not in the playoffs right now. I think bringing in a young coach does not automatically guarantee that you're going to be passing 24/7 and making mistakes. I think it varies.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's easy for them to get lost in the game situation, in the game state. And, I don't know, I'm not saying across the season because Detroit was good because of the run game, because they towed the rock with Gibbs and, Montgomery when he's healthy. So I know he knows how to, plan a game for running the ball.
He did give up
but
on it, though.
He gave up on it, and like I said, he just got lost playing hero ball, calling the hero calls.
I guess
it was so early, dude. You didn't have to do that. And then real quickly, Jaden Daniels. Okay, so I'm kind of giving. I'll stick with this. I'm not. He's had a good, nice little run here. I still feel like Detroit played into Washington football's hands. Washington football team had a good plan, but also Detroit was decimated on defense. But what I can give credit for Jaden Daniels is the poise he had, the calm, the cool-headedness, and maybe just being that guy, which there's very few in the NFL. We talk about this a lot about elite quarterbacks. People want to do a top 10 list, and is Dak on there? Blah, blah, blah is a big thing for Cowboy fans. I mean, I really think there's only 5 really elite quarterbacks, and with Aaron, and just the way he performs, and a lot of that has to do with calm and being able to see everything and register everything quickly and not panicking. I think he might be that guy, Jaden Daniels.
Hey man, look, it's a completely different animal, the regular season compared to the postseason. But I saw multiple games, man, where I was watching him, and he does have poise. Early in the season, I forget, God, which game was it? I see the throw. I see the game-winning touchdown.
He's got touch, too,
and I'm forgetting his opponent.
Something, too.
I'm forgetting the opponent in the week right now, but he threw a game-winning touchdown. It was early in the season, within the first month. And I was like, no, he's different. That was... first of all, you got all the pressure on you. You're at that point on a team that's perceived as complete trash, and you're a rookie, and you got a new head coach who, everything's, and you have Coach Bro as your OC. Nothing about what was on the field looked good that day. Again, it was the first month, but he led that team to the game-winning drive, and that was the moment. I think the very next podcast we had, that's when I go tell you and former guy, they're gonna finish within a game of the Eagles, and I missaid it. I should have said they'll be in the last NFC game of the year with the Eagles. I don't know. I think that you could tell that he's different. He's not someone who shies from the pressure, and is not someone who is with lack of ability when the pressure comes. He can do it, and he feels comfortable in it. And so I think that game plan was perfect against the Lions. They were depleted on defense. There's no doubt it was a good matchup for him. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are people who
Still got to go
mess
out and
up
do it.
favorable
Yeah.
matchups. He went
Yeah.
on the field and he did it. And
Yep.
I think you have to give credit for that.
Yeah, 100%. But they'll still get smashed next week when they play this team, Philadelphia Eagles. And
Yeah.
let's look at their matchup in the snow against the Rams. Uh, man, the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't like them, but I just can't understand the Kellen Moore Jalen Hurts relationship. I'm not sure. It's like the chicken or the egg. Who deserves more blame? Or who do you put the blame on? Hurts his inability to like make a throw or read, or Moore and that he's not making it easy for his guy. But thank God they have mulligans. Well, thank God for Philly fans and the Philly team and Sirianni that they have mulligans known as AJ Brown, maybe even Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert.
Saquon.
But yes, the guy who I've been waiting, Saquon, man, who had like 2 70-yard touchdown runs and maybe even like a couple of more big
Ridiculous.
plays. I mean, I know Jalen
There's
Hurts
this
had a nice
one clip where
big
someone
play.
has it's like a sideline view, and you see Saquon turn to Jalen Hurts, and he's like, "Hey, watch this." It was the play. He has one of his 70-yard touchdown runs. Like he saw it just from the matchup. He saw where the defense is. He knows his O line is dank. Just watch.
So yeah, it's weird because I feel like Kellen Moore. No, I guess you can't give credit for a big play that's done by just a freak athlete of Saquon. I don't think I can give credit to Kellen Moore, even though they put up 30 or something in that
I'll
game.
say this. I think the one compliment I'll give him is he didn't ever give up on the run no matter
that's
what.
true.
Like,
That's a good point.
It's Saquon. You obviously should never give up on the run, but I mean, you look at what Ben Johnson did with Gibbs. Gibbs had 14 carries in that game, man. That's not enough. And he had 100 and something yards on 14 carries. Gibbs, and so when you have these freak of nature running backs, or whether it's a freak of nature or not, it's just working. If it's working, do not abandon it ever. And so the fact that you're overcoming number two's offense, like the man can't throw the ball. He'll hit AJ Brown, but that's because you can't miss him. I mean, it's like throwing at the Empire State Building, and even if you missed it, somehow the building leaps left and catches it anyway. Yeah. And so you can't ever go wrong with the weapons that he has, but I do appreciate that Kellen Moore never once gave up on the run and hasn't so far. But it shouldn't be a compliment, but it really is, because OCs across the league will abandon the run.
Yeah, I think Philadelphia is maybe too talented to fail this season.
I think
they just have too much talent.
I'm sorry, real quick. But I think in that Green Bay game, we gave up on the run way too quick. In the playoffs last year, I think we gave up on the run in like the second quarter, and we were down like 2 possessions. Like one stop on defense and 1 score on offense, and we're right back in it. Just calm down. Let's take a breath. And so I don't think that Mike had that composure last year. So I am pleasantly surprised to see Kellen does a little bit.
So I guess Philadelphia on offense. Let me fix that statement. Too talented to fail. Because on defense, I don't think they're that talented. But Vic Fangio has got to figure it out, and gives me another bump of trusting the old heads on defense. Man, Spagnuolo, Zimmer, Vic Fangio, just guys who've seen football and been around football for 30 years. Just know, the call for just about everything. But on the other side of,
sorry, it cut out for half a second. Can you repeat that last sentence? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, Vic Fangio. Shout out to me and the old coach thing that I really like for defensive side of the guys. That Spagnuolo, Schwartz, Zimmer, guys that just see football time and time again. Just have an answer for just about everything. So
Schwartz, the old Lions head coach.
Yeah, have you seen his defense in Cleveland?
Oh, get Jim Schwartz out of here! I saw them week 1, and I remember trouncing them.
Okay, I'm not gonna get stuck with that. But let's give some Rams some credit too, because I think they're. Man, I just love the relationship between McVay and Stafford, and they had a chance to win it at the very end. Very impressed. They lost a turnover battle in Philly on the road, and I thought for sure the weather was going to beat Stafford down. But man, they had a shot to win it at the end. I think it gives a lot of credit to McVay and how he knows to draw up a game plan and this is the team that lost Aaron Donald and hasn't had a top draft pick in I don't know how many drafts since they traded it all for that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And just so impressive how they went toe to toe with Philly in that weather. Just with the cup, with Stafford, McVay, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and then, only really Rams fans would know the rest of the names on that roster. But, very impressed with just how well they are.
Especially on
as a
the
football
defensive
team.
side of the ball, man. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to tell you that all I remember is every time I watch that game, they're like, and they just drafted this guy. Oh, yeah, he's a replacement for Aaron Donald. Oh, this is a rookie. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's
really
wild.
well coached team, and I love to see that. If only they had good uniforms, I could really support them. And then unfortunately Sunday night brought my heartbreak. I will just say this: at least Baltimore and Lamar Jackson, the dude has been struggling. When things go bad, they go really bad for him in the playoffs, and things were going bad. I just can't understand how he fumbles and how they just continually make plays. We had the moniker for them being unserious the entire time this season, and I should have expected it, but just I don't understand how you do that. And also, how you fumble the ball that's perfect for the Buffalo Bills guy to pick it up and run 50 yards and flip the field. How does it just happen every time you're in the playoffs, bro? I don't understand.
How did that ball even leave his hands? It was inclement weather. I get it, but Jesus, just...
But...
I'm sure he was thinking, I'll just take the sack and the ball. So, he wasn't thinking, I'll fumble for fun. I get that, but, how, man? Come on.
But what maybe...
And the Mark Andrews goes ahead and gets it poked out, too. Just punches it out. And then, of course, his failure at the end. But even before that, he unserious again, fumbling, too, in the middle of the field while you're driving down.
Yeah, I will say the silver lining for Lamar, because that's the guy I really care about, and Harbaugh, just Tucker, some of those other guys I like. Derrick Henry, man, sad to see that little duo fall, not work in the playoffs, or at least to successful. But he did dig himself out of the hole, and like you were talking about, Mark Andrews had a bad play, and they still were there at the end to at least tie it up on that 2-point play. So maybe that is the silver lining that in the positive I could take away this Lamar Jackson. Maybe he's able to get out of his own head after that pitiful first half performance and, basically almost did enough to win it, or at least,
he did enough.
Win.
He did enough.
It was the time, but yeah.
Okay.
It's just good to see him improve, I guess, in the playoffs after a bad performance.
I think, and bro, the Ravens have been our unofficial second team throughout the podcast history. And so to see that happen, it was painful, man. And the one thing too, obviously for Lamar and the team, the disappointment of the loss is the biggest thing in the world. It obviously should be. But my immediate reaction after that game was I don't ever want to turn on the TV and listen to a debate show talk about Lamar and Josh Allen. It's going to be so nasty, man. I hate the way he's talked about now or prior to that game. After that one,
yeah, for sure. Speaking of painful, Cowboy fans, look away because in the NFC Championship game, it will be Washington at Philly, and then also look away, Chief, because it's also painful because Buffalo Bills are there and could get into the Super Bowl against Kansas City, in Kansas City this Sunday. Rudy, I think you're closest in this prediction. You did have Buffalo Bills winning the Super Bowl, so you got the other team right. And you did have Philly, I think, too. Did you?
I had Philly.
Yeah, so you are man. I'm sorry we gave up.
My only miss was Washington. Oh, no.
I think you had Philly versus Lions in the championship game.
Yeah.
So
Philly versus Detroit.
Are you going to?
I mean, I had Washington beating Tampa.
Yep.
I did have that. I had Washington beat Tampa, but why the hell would I have picked Washington over Detroit? That game, we live in we live in the 1 out of 40 worlds where Washington actually won, and in every other world, Detroit won. But my only miss, I have KC and Buffalo in the AFC. That occurred. You had KC Baltimore, and then
we don't gotta go into that.
Okay, well, I mean, there's only two. There's only one more matchup. I'll give it to you real quick. You had Minnesota, Detroit, and I had Philly, Detroit. Man, the thing is that I I felt that Philly's defense, Vic Fangio absolutely helped, but I also think that they did a great job. Like drafting Quinyon Mitchell was a big help for them. I think that their secondary compared to last year, it's night and day, even with two rookies in it. What they did at the end of last season was disgraceful. They were beaten deep, short, left, right, up the middle, and behind everywhere. And I think that defense, again, you credit to the old head. You're right. He has vastly improved that team, and the roster has also improved too. Jalen Carter's always been, kind of a monster, but this year it seems like he's even gone to another level. So I mean, they've drafted well, they hire well, they know where their weaknesses are, and they address their weakness hard.
Oh, so with these matchups, are you going to stick with your predictions? And I guess how do you think the games are going to play out? Both of them, NFC and AFC championship games. And yeah, I guess are you sticking with your prediction, or are you going to make a change?
Well, I'm sticking with my AFC prediction. My NFC, I cannot
Real
say
quickly,
Detroit is going to the Super Bowl anymore.
You just think Buffalo's too powerful, and regardless
I think
that they can
Kansas
beat
City
the
is
KC
kind of fraudulent, man. I think all year they've won games like by 5 points, 3 points, 2 points, 7 points against Denver. It comes down to a field goal, and you're at home, and you let rookie Bo Nix look identical to Patrick Mahomes. Get the hell out of here with that. And then you know what Buffalo does to Detroit or Denver when they host them? They beat them by 30. It's not close. I think that Buffalo's offense has too many weapons, and even if you're not a perceived threat, you still know how to use them. Khalil Shakir has had quite the year that no one assumed he would have. You can't tell me that. And then when Dalvin Cook's not running the ball, they got that other dude who's looking pretty dang good too, real quick as well. And defensively, I think defensively they're a nightmare to deal. I don't right now. I'd have to do a little film study because off the top of my head, I can't find the way to beat them this second. So no, I will absolutely still stick with Buffalo there. I can't stick with Detroit because they're out, so I will have to switch with NFC prediction, and I will go with Philadelphia in that one.
Okay. And how come you think Philly's just maybe too talented, just might have the answers?
I think they don't give up on the run like Ben Johnson did. I think if Gibbs can go for 120 on 14 carries, I think, what do you think Saquon can do? Mm-hmm. And I do think their offensive line is better than Detroit's. Detroit is a good one, but I think that the Philly offensive line is better. They're obviously a much healthier defense. And so I think that what I perceive or what I think is that, perceive is the wrong word. What I predict is that the first half is kind of tight. I do think that the Washington Commanders, their offense will keep it within a one possession game leading into the half, maybe 10 points. I'll give it 2 possessions, 10 points. But I think that second half is when Philadelphia breaks it open. I think that defensively, they're so good, man. And I think that the one thing they do very well too is, they punch that ball out. They're looking for turnovers every second. And so I think old man Eckler will probably have a fumble, or Ole Ertz. He ain't going to have the most welcome back to Philly. Get out of here with that. So I do perceive Philly's defense being too much for Jaden Daniels to overcome, and Philadelphia pulls away in the second half.
Yeah, I like that prediction. I think that's pretty accurate. And I might even go out and say I think Daniels comes back down to earth, and all this talk that we've had about him. Well, all the media as all that praise they give to him, that it won't be here this after Sunday. I think it'll probably die pretty quickly. With that being said, I do want Washington to win because I would rather see them in the Super Bowl, and maybe that's sparks Jerry to do something in the front office.
Okay, first of all,
hang on.
Okay, all right.
Let me say this. Yeah. I think Daniels might even have a bad game. Do you think am I being too harsh, or is it just there's just not enough for him to do?
What's a bad game to you?
Just pedestrian numbers, maybe like.
Let's say like
a turnover. I'm saying like a turnover, maybe around 200 yards, and maybe just like a touchdown or two, but definitely a turnover, sacked.
And not much rushing either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this will be for him a bad game. I would say I think it'll be like a real average game.
Yeah.
For him, I think it'll be like 260 passing. I think it'll be a touchdown passing. I think it'll be 2 interceptions
Yeah.
and maybe like 30 rushing yards.
And then for the AFC, I will be rooting for KC. Give me the three-peat so we can talk about how the NFL is boring now because of the crap, and they're pushing all this quarterback safety. And I would love to have
The
that
dynasty's
conversation
done.
eventually. And then I don't like Buffalo, so yeah, fuck them.
Dude, they're
So, yeah.
undeniable.
I guess
I don't like, man, and like I said, after that Ravens game, man, my quarterback went down. I know what the media is going to sound like, but just objectively, Buffalo to me is the much more dominant team there, and so I think it's their time. And I think,
Sure.
look, this is the worst the Chiefs' offense has looked in Andy Reid's tenure. Uh, McDermott, a defensive coach, has seen them a few times in the playoffs. I think he's prepared, man. I think that it's their time.
Okay. Should we end it there, or do you want to talk Schottenheimer next, real quick?
Yeah. We'll do a little after hour Schottenheimer.
Okay.
All right. Let me pour up a little wine.
Hey, pour
I'm
something
okay,
on the
like
screen.
buzzing kind of hard. Oh, true.
I need to pick up some champagne.
There you go, bud. Loki in the middle of that segment, the buzz really caught. I didn't realize I did that much damage to this. This was full.
Wine be too easy to.
Dude, yes.
Yeah,
I didn't realize Moscato's this good. I never Moscated. All right. Let's see. Also, I was trying to think of the right word to end my last sentence before we went to break. Brother, that was
I like what you said, actually. I was going to bring it up to start this segment, the after hour Schottenheimer.
Okay, please keep doing it because it'll, bro. I was like, after hour. What's the word I'm looking for? I was like, Jesus Christ! All right, just Schottenheimer. My brain wasn't functioning, but I appreciate it. Let's roll with it. Okay, so we'll just talk Shoddy, just as far as the likelihood and what to expect if he's the head coach, and then we'll call it.
Yeah, just the second interview note. So it looks like he might be here to stay. I guess what that means for the Cowboys, and then also maybe the Jason Witten news too. Maybe that's what it's all about. So I think we'll just talk that real quick, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay, perfect. They do it.
All right, Rudy. After our Cowboys, after our Schottenheimer, the man has just gone through his second interview, and people are saying news around the corner is likely. Personally, I don't really. I guess I might just be numb to it, but I'm not too like, what the fuck? I can't believe this, blah blah blah, and have a lot to yell about. I guess I am numb to it, and I kind of think that this kind of says goodbye to Dak if he is hired. And I think because I just don't see how this guy can scheme us to the Super Bowl within 3 years with Dak here. I don't see it being successful. Now they say he's a good communicator, and whatever that works on offense. But I think it is a punt for 3 years, and rumor is that he will have to take Jason Witten. That's why McCarthy fell out with resigning with the Cowboys. And so I really think, in a bizarre way, the Cowboys and Jerry in the front office, I don't want to use that man's name, the front office is punting for 3 years just so they can get Jason Witten and kind of saying, fuck you, McCarthy, and any type of team you built here. Fuck you, Dak, and all the CeeDee Lamb. Micah will get you paid, but this is what we're more focused on, is getting my guy in as head coach.
Yeah, it's. Whew. So in one of your notes that you had sent, it said something
Yes.
along the lines of like, oh well, our success, like we haven't had success, but sometimes you have bad luck, and you are in the playoffs like half the time. But if you're not in every year, then you can't obviously make it deep into the playoffs. Um, but my and so and I didn't really surmise that very well. I think you could probably do it better. But essentially, it was to say that the Cowboys, as opposed to Philly or Washington or any other team who's finding success as far as getting this deep into the playoffs and why we've had this long drought, you kind of explained it in a different way. But when I see that drought, and I've seen every move we make as a front office when it comes to free agency, head coaching, the draft, trades, everything. I see a disingenuous effort to go for it. I think that you have your quarterback on his last contract essentially. You have Micah, you have CD on contract. You should be going for it. And what that would entail is a genuine head coach search that would result in you hiring the best one and paying more than anyone is willing to for that man. And we're doing the opposite. We're actually lowballing McCarthy, who we didn't even like that much. And if we did love him, and we still lowballed them, well, that's even dumber, right? It's even dumber. So you failed on that one. Schottenheimer, you've known for a while, and you know what? In that first interview, he probably was like, "Look, these are the notes I gave McCarthy, and he didn't do this for the first 6 weeks." And then you know what? When we started actually listening to me and running, we did good. And I bet you that's why the second interview was called, that the Joneses feel that Schottenheimer's ideas were overlooked by McCarthy, and they could be successful. But I think that it's just another example of why we've failed in the past,
Yeah.
and it's not a real effort to find your head coach.
Yeah, essentially, I think what I said in my notes was like, it's just the front office being lazy, being and thinking they can cut corners to the ultimate to the Super Bowl, and I just think, bro, you can't do that at all. But they just rather keep doing that. So, do you think that the only reason Schottenheimer is getting genuine interest is because he will take on Jason Witten? Is that do you think that's what it all is all about, and that he and the Jones are kind of reverting to the Jason Garrett era, or they want a puppet installed that will kind of do what they say? Is that what you think is happening here?
I don't think it's solely for Witten. I
Really?
think it
Okay.
also has to do with the contract given. McCarthy's contract, dude, he was like the 20th highest paid
Oh,
coach
you're
in the
talking about
league.
like payment and compensation for
I
being
think
a head
that I
coach.
think there are multiple things that feed into it. I think the
Mm-hmm.
payment's the reason you can eliminate half of the candidates. And I think when you eliminate half of them, then Schottenheimer kind of looks good.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, look, some people might point out that Seattle, and I know you like Carroll, that Seattle's offense under him, they ran the ball very well. How much credit you want to give to the running back, or that's on you. What I saw was a team that ran. Then when it's time to run in the Super Bowl, they passed and lost the game. Uh, old his old nickname was Big Balls Pete, and Big Balls wanted to run it or pass it, and maybe he overruled Schottenheimer. I don't know, but the point being is that I think Schottenheimer is the cheap option that the Joneses like. I don't think he's the best available candidate. Um, can it be all right? Sure. I mean, we've had good teams with bad coaches before, so
I was going to
it
say
could
that was
be.
my next question. Do you see any way this works with Schottenheimer? And I guess what would be the most successful thing you could see with him? Because I could see us, honestly, this might be the worst case scenario is that he does make a playoff run and he gets. My biggest fear is that this is the Jason Garrett era part two, and this guy kind of finds success somehow, and that makes him stay here longer. And I don't want that. I'd be fine with it just running out with him with 3 years. I think he's better than Moore, and I kind of hope that it's just kind of in a very sad way, bro. But I would just feel like it'd be best if this kind of fades out the Dak years. 'Cause I don't think he'll find a way to maximize Dak, even though you did mention that he's a run first coordinator, or that's where he had success in Seattle. I think that's good. ultimately, I just don't see how it's successful, and maybe it just somehow transitions away to us being so bad that we get a high pick by the time in the second year or third year. I really don't see playoff success. I don't see it. Maybe this next year would be qualified for the playoffs, but after that, I just don't see it being successful. Do you see any way it could be successful? Can this man fall backwards, or can he surprise us all? Or
dude, we're one wide receiver away from giving defenses conniptions on stopping.
Yeah, the offseason will be big in transactions and players and draft. That will be one big way that will change my outlook on this team. That's for sure.
I honestly think it's almost easier to be average in the NFL than be bad. Bad, you actually have to try to be bad. To be 8-8, you kind of go along with it. You hire your good players, and we have some great ones with like Micah and CD, great players. But you do that, and then you say you're broke, and so you can't be too good. You can't be like Philadelphia, who have Philadelphia has more money tied up in current contracts than you do, and still sign Saquon. That's what a team going for it looks like. We're not going to do that.
That's the front office not being lazy and not cutting corners. That's
right. And our front office isn't that. Our front office knows how to be decent at football, and we do it every year. We'll honestly, if Dak doesn't have his injury, we finish third in our division, but we're close to the playoffs, which is good and keeps intrigue, and so fans don't give up on you. They still believe in you. And I think that's the goal of the Cowboys in the front office, is to be good enough to not have the fans quit, but we're not going to do what the Rams did and give all their picks away, which led to a Super Bowl. They still bounced back from and went further than you did this year without any of that draft capital. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to risk that. We're not going to go into free agency and sign players like Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, which were massive successes on their respective teams, or Josh Jacobs. We're not going to do that. We're not going to make trades like the Eagles did a few years ago for A.J. Brown. We'll do it for Mingo, but not Brown. We don't try to be great. We try to be okay. We try to be good. We try to be decent. We don't try to be great ever. And then Schottenheimer, if our offense, again, sorry to interrupt you, and I know I'm rambling and talking a lot.
No, you're good.
But I think we can be decent. We'll be solid. That's it.
Yeah, I think you kind of put it perfectly somewhere in there. A little rant you were having. No, I'm just kidding.
There's a lot.
No, you did put it perfectly, though, that I think the front office's Super Bowl is that little playoff uncertainty. They love living in that little, like, are we going to make the playoffs or not? Oh, we made the playoffs. Yeah. And that's good enough for them, because that means eyeballs. You're focused for 17 games. You're getting a lot of out of the fans or whatever engagement. Yeah, you're getting engagement. You don't have to overspend, but you're still getting all that engagement always in the playoffs. And you know what? If we do go on a run, whoa, look at that. It's successful without even trying. And if we're not, well, we'll just run it back again because we got 17 more games of that. And that's good.
Dude, this is the front office that when free agency starts, they go on vacation.
Yeah.
And they've done it our entire lives. Like, how do I take that serious? They genuinely leave when it should be their most intensive moments of trying to build this roster. Mind you, this roster is missing so many players going into next year, and they'll be in Cancun or they'll be wherever. They'll be on the yacht somewhere. So they know that they have stars on their team, again, like Micah, CD, Dak, and
that's good enough. Yeah.
That's good enough.
All right. In summary, we do sound very negative on the Schottenheimer hire. Is there any way that this is just a ploy and they're just kind of doing this for media narrative and then they somehow go in a different direction?
The only way that's true is if you go with Kellen Moore. It can be
that honestly, is a worse fate.
It can be a placeholder, like right now.
Or Coach Bro.
I think that's worse than Moore.
Is he worse than Schottenheimer?
Schottenheimer, man, I don't know him.
I think I'd rather take Coach Bro just because it'd be Dion Light and it'd be a little bit more interesting. But ultimately,
I think the things that work well about Coach Bro though are the things that your quarterback can't do anymore. Like I said, when it comes to a 3rd and 1, they're running Jaden, and not like in a tush push way. They're running him to the outside. Who the hell is Dak out running to the outside? That's not happening. So, no.
Trey Lance, Rudy.
My fault. Yeah, man. I think that, again, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Schottenheimer's straight ass, but I also do realize no other team in the NFL is trying to interview him. Yeah. I think that we have a lot of leverage over him. I think the Joneses love having leverage over their coach. He's the favorite for a reason. I think it is likely he's our head coach, unless it is just stay in the headline right now, and we'll bring in Kellen Moore later. There's a chance that second interview is like an interview for an OC position if we were to bring in Kellen Moore. But, hey, Jesus Christ.
Let's just hope the draft goes well, and maybe they surprise us in free agency while they're on their yacht vacation. Other than that, it looks very bleak in the Cowboy hiring the head coach process. I just, very disappointed with all the names, Saleh, Aaron, Glenn interests. Well, that some of those have been taken from you, and the fact that Saleh didn't get the second interview with Schottenheimer does, I think, ultimately bodes very poorly for Cowboy.
It is pretty incredible. We were like, I'm not going to interview them. Mike, let's keep talking for an extra 2 weeks while everyone finds a job and every team finds a head coach. Mike, you didn't want our number.
I was going to say the fact that you didn't have a contingency plan for McCarthy saying no, I think just kind of, again, highlights lazy cutting corners and ultimately it biting you in the butt. I did have some hope that maybe that Jerry or the front office reacts when they are left at the altar, or the pretty girl that they want ignores them, then they actually go and do something like smart. But it looks like I was living in a pipe dream, and that is not the situation. Hopefully there is a change of use. But that being said, fellas, let's look forward to 2025.
Yeah, baby. Super Bowl champs. Super Bowl, what is it? 61 or something? I don't even know what year. All right, we got it though.
All right, I think that's signing off for the season. So
yeah, Chief, anything? Oh wait, I think you're supposed to ask me that.
No, you had it perfectly. You were setting it up perfectly.
You know what? I think this rambling is making it even better. Ian, is there anything we're forgetting?
Nope. Let's get out of here.